Welcome back to Newsday here on Arise News. The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency has advised that 5 states should be on red alert against flooding. The Director General of the NIHSA, Mr. Clement Onyeso, who gave the briefing advice while briefing newsmen in Abuja recently, listed the affected states to be on red alert as follows: Edo State, Delta State, Anambra State, River State and Bayelsa State. He advised the states to identify the communities bordering River Niger and make adequate plans for timely evacuation of people to safe grounds or higher grounds in the event of flooding. So how prepared is Delta State for this floods? Well, let's cross live now to the state capital, Asaba, where the Director General of the Delta State Orientation Bureau, EUGENE UZUM, joins us live via WebEx. Many thanks for joining us today, sir, to speak about this in more detail. And I have quite a few questions for you. I know my colleagues do as well, because this is a very worrying situation, but it's one that occurs every year. What proactive measures are being considered by the government to mitigate damage that citizens are likely to face due to the floods this year?
Thank you very much. The Delta State government takes very seriously the security of life and property, especially when it comes to this issue of flooding. Over time, we've had these issues right from 2012, and a lot of proactive measures have been taken out. But this time around, there's a new template considering the fact that COVID-19 is here with us, and so government is coming up with new modalities. Previously, what we'll do is we'll have the IDP camps where people are taken care of, especially the victims of flooding. We have within the IDP camp, have the committees on education, have committees on logistics, have committees on transport, committees on health, and all other committees that will facilitate the welfare of the victims. But this time around, we've gotten the prediction or the forecast from NIMET ready. The Delta State government has gone ahead to set up the Committee on Flood and Flood Management, headed by the the Secretary to Delta State Government, and in that committee are other persons, especially the State Emergency Management Agency. You have the Ministry of Information, or represented by the Commissioner of Information, the State Orientation Bureau, Health, Education, and others. So what we're doing this time around is, first of all, looking at the coastlines, the axis within the Delta South, Central, and North, the senatorial district areas where the flooding is really going to affect by virtue of NIMET prediction. Beyond that, Delta State government has been moving through the print and electronic media to give the information to our people that the usual flood, the perennial flood, is coming again. And this time around, those in the lowlands are now being moved to the uplands, because you agree with me that among the 5 frontline states mentioned, Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, Edo, and the other states, the south here, Delta State is surrounded by the river coast. From the Warri axis, you have the Atlantic Ocean. From the Cocoa axis, you have the Atlantic Ocean as well. From the Udu local government axis, you have SABE. And then in Yoshimili, north and south, here in Asaba, you have the River Niger stretching across, going towards Kogi State. Right. So to a very large extent, our waterfronts are quite open. So what the state government is doing is that we've been able to identify the nature of flooding that's going to come. We're going to have the main flooding. We're going to have flash floods as well. So the Delta State government is already reaching out to our people to move upward. Those in the
yes. Let me just comment there. When I had move, that was a good place for me to come in, really. We understand there'll be floods every year, most likely, but can we get to a place where milestones achieved previously can be improved upon, so we don't start from scratch each time this occurs? And talking about move, each time you tell people move, have we built accommodation where these people can be moved to temporarily?
Yes, what the Delta State government is doing this time around is to ensure that the movements of people within the riverine area, they are taken to a place where they will be well accommodated, like we've always done before, especially during the flooding. When we say move this time around, we agree with me that certain persons who live within the riverine axis have access to persons as well who live in the uplands. For example, in the places like Balauno in the Tokwa East local government, where we have this perennial flooding, and places like Patani local government, the government has designated the place. But this time around, it is not the usual IDP camp It is not the usual IDP camp where people come in because we are taking into consideration the protocol of COVID-19. So people are already, as we speak, being evacuated from the very water-prone axis where it's immediately affecting to the uplands. Then beyond that, like you just mentioned, what are those areas that the government is actually improving on, looking at what we've done in the past? The government is already directed SEMA, State Emergency Management Agency, to carry out a proper enumeration of the people within that axis, because you will agree with me that even within the riverine axis, this challenge of flooding has always been there. And if you go to places like Warri North, for example, in a village called Shekelewu, it's down or very close to the Atlantic Ocean. When the water rises, all they do is that they build these houses, they are still within their immediate environment and find it very difficult to evacuate because they already have where they stay. So what government does is, upon proper enumeration, palliatives are taken to them in their various destinations. Palliatives in terms of foods, drugs, and other facilities that they require. So the movement is of two phases. Some move uplands, while some are within the immediate environment. What happens is that maybe their farm is flooded or the immediate environment is flooded, but not like where they reside. So the state government has been able to categorize it. But key in it is the information that the people need, taking information to grassroots, informing them of the impending flooding. For example, we have people in Delta State by virtue of the state government initiative on smart agenda and the job creation initiative who have fish ponds. For those which fish ponds have matured like 3-4 months and maybe the gestation period is 6 months, we encourage them to harvest and even buy up. For those who have crops within their farms and will know the flooding is going to come in, not forgetting the fact that there is a lot of ignorance, within people. When I mean ignorance in terms of the causes of flooding. Flooding most times is a natural disaster. We needed to take this information, which the State Orientation Bureau has done sufficiently and adequate and still doing. We do this by taking information to them in the language they understand. We go to the axis and reach out to them in their various language through youth groups, the traditional institutions, all these critical stakeholders. And having gotten this message, we prepare in line with the local government chairman supported by AGON, the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. So each local government, each of the 25 local governments, beyond the fact that they are aware, have also been able to provide a location for immediate evacuation. And like you can see, we have gotten the highest of August break in a very long time. But you agree with me too that going by NIMET forecast, the rains are going to come. And in fact, it's here with us in some axis.
All right, EUGENE, you've mentioned a lot about flooding, but you just also mentioned the Pantani people, because we know that Abari residents in the Pantani local government are decrying massive erosion, almost sweeping off their lands. Talk to us about what the government is doing to ensure they actually curb this.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very interesting topic because a lot is being deployed in that direction, considering the fact that, like I said, we're on the water prone. It's not just Abari. Abari is a village in Pantani local government. You have Angoloma, you have Turu Abari, you have other local governments like Burutu, Bomadi, and Pantani. So what government has actually been able to do is to build what we call the waterfront, the loading of the waterfront, so that the waters coming from the Atlantic Ocean don't overflood into the town. But the challenge with that is that the waters have kept rising due to global warming. You will agree with me that sometimes when there's a forecast in terms of the volume of water that will come from the ocean, most times it surpasses. So what government does, first of all, is the immediate welfare of residents of that axis. And that is exactly what NEMA has been suggesting. In terms of road projects or, projects that has to do with, foreclosing the entry of such water, the government has built the barricades in the river axis. We also need to use this opportunity to commend some works of the NDDC. They've also done a lot in that direction. But the key thing now, what we're talking about now, is the impending flood that threatens some of the communities in the riverine and those in the hinterland. So that is the government is actually, like I said, the proactive measures are just a lot, both in terms of ensuring that the crops, the various agricultural products are protected, and that the people have access to medicines, the people have access to education in the course of the flooding, the people have access to palliatives. Proper enumeration is taken because the enumerated figure for last year, for example, had about 23,000. It could be more, it could be less. And it depends on the levels of impact on the various society. So the key thing is the people have the information that the flooding is coming and it's here with us, and key into government initiatives vis-a-vis the traditional method they've actually been using before, which to a very large extent is outdated.
Okay, but I'd like to stay on Abari for a bit because the community is literally on the verge of being completely washed off, and hundreds of people who do reside there have been rendered homeless by this. Does the government have data on how many people have been rendered homeless because of the coastal erosion? How many people has the government been able to help? Because these reports continue to file into the media. So, of course, there are people who are still suffering due to these problems, even though government is trying its best to do what it can. Surely more can still be done. People are homeless.
Yes, Abari community, like I said, is a community within the Patani axis. And we have communities like Asabas, Ulo and Yuma and Guluma, and some other communities. But staying with Abari, like I said, the government has been able to take palliatives, what I mean palliatives in terms of food, medicine, and other that are required, especially in this time of flooding. Then the natural disaster of flooding, water overflowing from the Atlantic Ocean. Like I said, the water barricades that have been built sometimes due to global warming is being surmounted. And it's not just about Abari as a community. So remember too that it's perennial. It comes during the season that it comes, and then it also goes away. So what the government is actually doing now is, first of all, secure lives and property of the affected persons, and then capital projects in terms of curtailing the excesses of the water. So that has been done, and like I mentioned, there's still some pockets of programs being carried out by the NDDC. No doubt, a lot has been done, but not sufficiently. Sufficiently in the sense that the water has not been totally managed, and this is not. This is due to the fact that the water rising level as a result of climatic change. It's quite very, very challenging.
All right. So, all right, Eugene, let me see how you can answer this under 1 minute or 40 seconds. You've talked about information, but another area is sensitizing people to those habits that encourage flooding. That's one. And then secondly, the question of having equipments that can lift people like helicopters, those kind of equipments that you watch and you see people being helped with. Do you have such equipment? Is the government helping you to get them?
Fantastic. In terms of information, the State Orientation Bureau has always taken the information door to the people, even with the language they understand. Like I said, we work with the traditional institutions, we work with the youth groups, we work with market women, we work with critical stakeholders to ensure that they get the information. To a very large extent, because of the volume of information that we take to the people, we have not come to the stages where we have started having casualties. The people who are poor victims in that place are being taken out. So if the need arises, or when the need arises for people to be taken to the hospital through helicopters or tugboats or other facilities that are needed, the state government will carry it out. But because of the volume of information and the nature of information we take to people, we forestall that from happening, because that only happens in critical cases. We forestall it in the sense that government does the needful and beyond in terms of ensuring. Yes, the proactive steps are there. Then beyond that, like I said, the people, it's not just a project of government, there's a buy-in of the locals, because getting them informed, putting them in the forefront of the proactive measures of government.
All right, we want to say many thanks to you, Eugene, for taking your time to elaborate and talk to us on some of these issues here on Newsday.